This is all a game of profit, and none of these people care about the truth. You know who cares about the truth? The fucking most honest YouTuber. I'm pretty much that.
The purpose of this video is not to point the finger at Onision and call him a liar. In a sense, what I'm doing is pointing the finger at Onision and pointing out the extent to which he created in his own mind a cult of honesty. He became deeply attached to this notion of himself as an honest man, this idea that honesty is his defining characteristic. He's many, many times called himself the most honest man on YouTube. And I think there's something all of us can learn from reflecting on that, because all of us in our lives are guided more than we're guided by any particular ideology, more than we're guided by any particular belief. We may be guided by our idea of what the truth is and the ways in which we're beholden to the truth. In other words, our own personal cult of honesty.
People think that we slept with this girl that we've known for some time, and we haven't. And it's weird, that people think that, especially, it's kind of like, there's a piece of pie on the table and everyone's saying you ate it, yet you didn't. And you're like, well, can you blame me for something that I actually did do? And people are obsessed with this idea. They're like, oh, they did it. It's like, but there's literally, this never happened. So there's literally no proof. And you're going off someone who hasn't known us in a very long time. So you have no eyewitnesses, no anything, no indicators or whatever. You guys, you think you catch me in lies and but you don't realize that sometimes people say, hey, I'll see you at 2:00. And then they say, oh, hey, I can't make it till 4 because something came up. And then you go, liar. And it's actually like, no, plans just change and people have to break promises. A broken promise is not a lie. And that's what people don't get. And also, people change.
What's remarkable here is not that he's lying. It's that he's so committed to this perverse idea of himself as honest. In that clip, he's spelling out for you the deception and the self-deception he's engaged in. I'm here treating it as truthful and factual that the young woman he was employing as a babysitter, as a sort of live-in babysitter, that just a few days after her 18th birthday, he started having sexual relations with her. And as she's specified, and as I showed on screen there, that happened just a few days after he made that video in which he's stating to the audience there never had been any sexual relationship between him and this young woman, and there never would be. But then he also tells you breaking a promise isn't the same as telling a lie.
A broken promise is not a lie.
And people change. What's true in one period of your life isn't true.
And also, people change.
It's kind of eerie to reflect on. How do you think this started? How do you think he became so committed to this idea that he wasn't going to lie to get what he wants? That he was going to maintain this very peculiar sense of integrity, of honesty, that sets him apart from all other YouTubers, that sets him apart from everyone else in the world?
I perceive myself to be an honest person because I constantly try to be honest. And I don't recall me ever intentionally being dishonest.
I think we actually can trace two really significant steps here. One is the overly honest video he made about his desire to sleep with his first wife's younger sister.
I was kind of into my ex-sister-in-law.
I think that led him to be involved in a kind of loop of self-justification, where he thinks of himself as the only really honest person. He's being honest here on YouTube, and he's committed to this honesty. He won't let himself look back on, reflect on, and regret that decision he made. But if we go back even further, I think if you look at the videos he made in which he talks about vegetarianism, he talks about the importance of honesty, about being honest about where meat comes from. I think it's clear that at an earlier stage, he really developed this notion of what made him different from other people, what made him vegetarian in a world where he was surrounded by meat eaters, was that he was willing to be honest with himself, and he was willing to be honest with you, the viewer, about the horrifying truth that's on our plates and in our refrigerators in our daily lives.
I mean, I know it's sick and I know it's disturbing, but I would love to see it just for the sake of people acknowledging what they're doing. Is whenever you buy foods that are strictly plant-based or, vegetarian or whatever, you have this little image showing where it came from or a general concept of where it came from. For instance, a plant that's cut up into a bunch of little pieces. And for meat products, they have a little image of decapitated chicken with blood spurting out, or a cow with its throat slit wide open. I think that would be really, really good for the sake of people opening their eyes to reality and ending this whole life of denial that seems to be consistent with meat eaters. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, that's so offensive. Why would you do it? Because it's reality.
There are some people who can wallow in regret. There are some people who can almost enjoy aesthetically the process of reflecting on their failures, reflecting on their shortcomings, and maybe even learning from that process of reflecting. And there are some people who find regret so painful psychologically that they'll engage in extreme and aberrant behavior to avoid reflecting on mistakes they made in the past, to avoid reflecting on things that one way or another simply went wrong. Onision made a bad decision. He made a bad decision in creating a YouTube video in which he openly expressed his desire to sleep with his wife's younger sister.
I was kind of into my ex-sister-in-law. So there was a lot of tension between me and other people on a regular basis because I never really had that passionate thing while I was married. So it was always like this pent-up tension or whatever towards other people. But my sister-in-law at the time, I was attracted to her.
And he stated the possibility, to be frank, he seemed to be fantasizing about the possibility that instead of marrying the woman who was then his wife, he could have instead romanced the younger sister and waited for her to turn 18 and then married the younger sister instead.
In fact, if I could turn back time, I would still wind up where I am because I'm very happy with the spouse I have now. But if I wasn't to wind up with the spouse I have now, I would have actually wanted to pursue this sister, to date her, because we had so much more in common, and I would have had to wait a few years because she was 15 and I was 18 at the time. She even tried to kiss me at one point and I dodged it because, one, she was intoxicated, and two, again, our age gap, well, I'm not sure it was legal. I think it was legal, actually. But either way, I still dodged the kiss, so I wouldn't even risk something illegal happening. But I was always attracted to her because she was a lot more energetic, she was a lot more interesting and fun, and the person I married was very draining, very depressing, but she liked anime and video games, so we were able to basically build our entire marriage on that, which is, pathetic.
It's not as if we have to rely on the word of his embittered ex-wife. We get to hear Onision himself spelling out his motivations, his desires, and his fantasies. Because from his perspective, he was honest about it. He was deeply committed to this cult of personal honesty. Let me tell you something. Feeling the desire to sleep with your wife's sister, that's one thing. Admitting it to any other human being, that's another. Acting on the desire, pursuing the desire, like expressing it to the sister or, making a move and trying to initiate a relationship with the sister, it's a significant further step. And then discussing this publicly on the internet, this is a fourth very ethically significant decision. The impression that I get from Onision's ex-wife, who has been writing about this on the internet just in the last couple of days, is, unsurprisingly, that she was deeply hurt, egregiously emotionally wounded and embittered by her husband's attempted flirtation with her younger sister. Not surprising. It's the sort of thing you might anticipate. What has never occurred to Onision was that if he had these feelings for his wife's younger sister, one option might be to suppress those feelings, never admit them to anyone, never admit them to the sister, never admit them to the wife, never talk about them on the internet, perhaps keep that a shameful secret until the day you die, or you know what? You might leave some things for you to wistfully talk about when you're well over 60 years old. I mean, that might have taken the sting out of it. But instead, he was committed to his own notion of honesty. He was beholden to the truth as he sees it and feels it. I think his mentality is precisely that he won't let himself regret it. He's committed to living a life without regrets, and for him that necessarily entails a refusal to reflect on the harm done by his self-styled honesty.
I'm a person who values honesty to a great degree. That I'm one of the most honest YouTubers, if not the most honest YouTuber. And they're like, if you say that, it must not be true. Like, they say, if you are a person who says that you're honest, honest people don't need to say that they're honest, so why are you saying you're honest?
I don't recall me ever intentionally being dishonest. So if I'm dishonest, it's completely unintentional. But just so you know, if there's an instance where you think I've done something dishonest, if there's a situation in which basically my actions seem just kind of like beyond what you would expect of me, I really hope that you utilize my contact page to clarify it with me first, before you make any conclusions. Because I perceive myself to be an honest person because I constantly try to be honest. Just believe in me and I'll do all I can not to let you down. Thank you.
Right now I have 1,321 patrons. I used to have more.